the spirituality and science of fasting. Tools such as fasting, meditation, diet, exercise, and mindfulness have been necessary for me to thrive over the past 3 years. I've made it tradition to do longer-term fasts every year to reset and refresh, both from a physical and mental health perspective, the science side, and a spiritual health perspective. The spiritual significance of food. The significance of food. It only takes a day or two before you realize that hunger really doesn't matter the way we'd like to think it does. What I mean is that after you get past the first 24 hours, the hunger waves don't come in as intensely. Beyond the first 24 hours, you instead find yourself chasing cravings. There's a big difference. People often doubt their capability to fast for more than a few hours, but you have to trust your physiology, as demonstrated in the science section below. Your body is there to support you as it heals. Therefore, the feeling that you have to overcome when fasting is the craving for flavors. That's the side of you that you need to eliminate. That's the side that finds itself entitled to prefer some foods over others. There's no problem with that unless you find yourself complaining when your food isn't presented to you in exactly the way that you want it. Food is an essential pillar of life, and it should be treated as such. Fasting helps to remind you of this essential fact. It separates the real from the shadow you. It puts things back in perspective. Higher state of awareness. In the proper fasted state, you find yourself more clear-headed, no anxiety to interfere with your conscious state. Thoughts are less frequently circling through your head. For me personally, this allows for easier communication of deep thoughts. I find myself in a flow state far more often, which lends itself to deeper conversations. I find myself looking out at routine scenes, i.e., my drive to work, with more interest and awe. Things look crisper, clearer. I find that listening to deeply harmonious music causes goosebumps across my skin more frequently, the same thing that happens when I conjure up a prayer from the heart. I try to be an example of what's possible. We need to break through our preconceived notions of what it means to go without food. It's possible for everyone with a little bit of planning and physiological training. Restoring the senses. We find ourselves surrounded by so much food. Our taste buds have become jaded. We now come to expect luxuries that were once scarce, 24/7. Going through this fast reset my taste buds. I've heard many religious camps talk about inconceivably tasty an apple is in heaven. I hate to rain on their parade, but that can be found here and now. The sensitivity of our taste buds have been corrupted by excess. The only way I know how to explain that first sip of juice when I broke my fast is fireworks in my brain. It was literally euphoria. It restored my appreciation for the significance of the abundance that we find ourselves with in the 21st century. What a blessing. The science behind it all. I've described the physiology of fasting before, but I'll describe it again. When ketones come to the rescue. The agent in charge of keeping your blood pH stable is insulin. Insulin is like a key that opens up cells to take in sugar and other substrates from the blood. Here's a simplified breakdown of how it works. You eat carbohydrates, i.e. sugar, bread, pasta, fruit, etc. Your body breaks down that food into simpler glucose or sugar molecules. The glucose enters the blood. This makes the blood more acidic, i.e. the pH drops. Insulin is released to open up your cells to take in that glucose. The glucose is used for energy. However, any excess that isn't needed is stored in a storage form known as glycogen. Any excess beyond that is stored as fat, and that's driven by insulin. So when glucose is low in the blood, that reverse begins to happen. Insulin doesn't get released. Instead, it's glucagon that arrives to release fat stores or glycogen. When you fast, the blood sugar stays low consistently. So when all the storage form of glucose or glycogen has been used up, the body needs to rely on stored fat. An average person has around 100,000 calories of fat storage on the body. The problem is, those fat molecules are stored as triglycerides. When they are released into the blood, those triglycerides are broken down into fatty acids, or simple fat molecules. These molecules can't cross into the brain. Rather than breaking down your muscle for sugar, a process known as gluconeogenesis, the body prefers to make this fat work. The way it does so is by converting these fatty acids into ketones. These ketones are a water-soluble form of regular fatty acids, which can cross into your brain. Misplaced skepticism. So once the ketone levels rise to provide energy to your bodily systems, the acidity starts to rise in the blood, the same as with glucose. To regulate this, the pancreas releases insulin to keep ketones level below approximately 7 millimolar, depending on the individual. Modern doctors get confused with the production of ketones, claiming that you will enter a state of ketoacidosis if you try the keto diet. This is not true if you're healthy. Type 1 diabetics can't produce insulin and therefore have ketone levels that rise beyond 16 millimolar, which is actually fatal. However, a normal pancreas can regulate a healthy ketone level by releasing regular doses of insulin. My numbers. As you can see from my results above, the glucose dropped while ketones were simultaneously rising. This efficiency took me time to develop. When I first started doing longer fasts, my glucose levels would fall and the rise of ketones would be delayed. This caused me to feel horrible. My improved efficiency in switching to ketones is considered metabolic flexibility. You can see that after my fast, my glucose levels rose sharply. My glucose continued to be volatile, rising and falling very quickly after I'd concluded the fast. This is normal after a long-term fast. It usually stabilizes again after about a week. What was odd was that my weight actually went up through the 4 days. I rose from 137 pounds to 142, and then came back down to 137 after the fast. I suspect that I've developed an adaptation to fasting that allows me to retain water for longer in the beginning. The benefits of fasting. The benefits are extensive and range from purging bacteria in the gut microbiome, starving precancer cells, activating genes that defend against aging and disease, strengthening and assisting the immune system, improving skin quality, improving blood sugar regulation. It still amazes me just how taboo fasting is these days. It's clearly a means of enabling positive change within each and every one of us. To read more, please visit www.banafit.com. That's www.banafit.com. Thanks for listening.